السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله الله بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. أما بعد، معشر المسلمين، أوصيكم ونفسي أولا بتقوى الله عز وجل. فإن الله تعالى يقول بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. Now in this khutbah I want to follow up with the topic I introduced last week and didn't have time to finish. It is interesting that after the khutbah a brother approached me and asked me, how can you say that the words which you mentioned are not in Sahih Bukhari? And here we have in An-Nawawi's 40 hadith, the hadith is mentioned here. It's hadith number 6, and it says right there, وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. So Imam An-Nawawi says at the end, رواه البخاري ومسلم. Bukhari and Muslim narrated it, means the whole hadith. But actually, Al-Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah took these words not from Sahih al-Bukhari, he took it from Muslim. And because the hadith is so similar in both Bukhari and Muslim, he just put it in a simple way, Rawah al-Bukhari wa Muslim. And perhaps he did not think that the absence of those few words in al-Bukhari is of any significance. But I think that the absence of those words in al-Bukhari is of great significance. And that's why I made a point about that. So I maintain that those few words, 3 words actually, waqa'a fil haram, that is not in Sahih al-Bukhari. So to make the point clearer, Here I have the Fath al-Bari, a volume from Fath al-Bari, a commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And here is how the hadith reads. حدثنا أبو نعيم حدثنا زكريا عن عامر قال سمعت النعمان بن بشير يقول. So this is a chain of narrators. Imam Bukhari says such and such a person narrated to us. This other person, he said that person related to him, and that person said, I heard Nu'man ibn Bashir saying, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول. I heard the messenger of Allah saying, Al-halalu bayyin, wal-haramu bayyin. The halal is clear and the haram is clear. وَبَيْنَهُمَا mushabbahat. And between them, there are ambiguous matters. لا يعلمها كثير من الناس. A lot of people do not know about them or do not know their ruling or how to deal with them. فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever is careful about the shubuhat, the mushabbahat, about the doubtful matters or ambiguous matters, he has saved his religion and his honor from any doubt. He has saved his from any questioning. He has made himself innocent in terms of his religion and his honor. So nobody can accuse him of anything. That's the point. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ. And whoever falls into this doubtful matters, وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ. Whoever falls into these doubtful matters, كَرَاءٍ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى. Is like a shepherd who grazes his flock around a sanctuary, around an inviolable place. You can't go into there. You have to stay on the outskirts. So it's like that shepherd grazing his flock around this sanctuary. يُوشِكُ أَنْ يُوَاقِعَهُ. He is almost getting into there. He's on the verge of getting in. So he's grazing his flocks on the outskirts. He knows the line, and he's grazing very close. He's almost getting in. So the hadith is saying basically that whoever falls into the shubuhat, the doubtful matters, is like this shepherd. He's grazing his flocks around the sanctuary. He sees the borderline and he's getting close and he's almost getting into there. But of course, the hadith is not saying that he's gotten in there yet. And then a second part of the hadith will follow after this explanation. Allah wa inna likulli malikin hima. Isn't it true that every king has a hima, has a sacred or protected place? Maybe a king has a pasture in which his own animals will graze, and that's his. Nobody can get in there. Allah inna himallahi fi ardihi maharimuh. And isn't it true that the protected area for Allah on the earth is those things which He has made haram? Allah wa inna fil jasadi mudghah. Now comes the second part of the hadith. We can take this by itself as though it is a hadith in its own right and deserving its own commentary. So this part says, Allah wa inna fil jasadi mudghah. Isn't it true that if in the body there is a lump of flesh? إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If it is wholesome, then the entire body becomes wholesome. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. And if it is corrupt, then the whole body becomes corrupt. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. And isn't it the heart that deserves this description? Is that part of the body? If it is made wholesome, the whole body is made wholesome. If it is corrupt, the whole body becomes corrupt. Now, the connection between the two parts of the hadith, we will have a chance, inshallah, to comment upon. But here you have the two parts, each with a kind of distinctive theme and message. And then the two parts we'll try to put together. So why did I make the point about going back to Al-Bukhari instead of taking the other narratives? what I find with this hadith is if we go to An-Nawawi's 40, it says Rawah al-Bukhari wa Muslim, and it does not pay attention to the fact that those three words are not in al-Bukhari. And if you go to many other books that cite this hadith, they all cite the version from Muslim and from other compilers. But why don't they go back to al-Bukhari? Because they like the addition. And from a historical point of view, if you want to find out what did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ say, then you have to take the most dependable source first. If something is not in the most dependable source, and it is somewhere else, this becomes by itself questionable. Why is it not in the most dependable source? Now there could be an explanation. Maybe Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was not interested in a certain hadith. Maybe that hadith did not reach him, or he traveled a lot, but maybe he did not meet the person who could narrate this particular hadith and so on. Now that is not the case here. The case here is that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah has the hadith. It's the same hadith from the same person, a young companion of the Prophet ﷺ, whom, according to Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, was only 8 years old when the Prophet ﷺ died. So they're all relating a hadith from the same person. But what has happened is that it comes through a certain line of individuals. This person told another person, who told another person, who told another person, who then told Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. And if it goes through separate lines of transmission, so this person told one person, he told another person. This starts one line of transmission. This starts another line of transmission. At the end, that becomes something slightly different. At the end, that becomes something slightly different. Now, what Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah generally does is that he tries to make the chain as short as possible. So he goes through extra pains to meet more people and to narrow down the line of transmission to a few individuals, because the fewer the individuals, the less likely that errors will be introduced. Moreover, you will find often in comparison that when you look at Imam Bukhari's narration of a particular hadith, and you see the same hadith in, let's say, Ibn Majah, then you will see that the hadith in Ibn Majah is expanded. And what that means is that now you have to make a choice. If Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah has the shorter version and somebody else has what looks like an expanded version, now what has happened here? Didn't Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah think that the words of the Prophet ﷺ are not important, so he just gave us like a shorter version, omitting some of what the Prophet ﷺ actually said? Or is it the other way? That some people got the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, they heard it, and they're thinking, you know what? Some words inserted would expand it and explain it further. So what they do is they add words to expand it and to explain it further so that everybody would understand what it means when they relate it to the next person. So that's the natural tendency. Somebody expands the narrative. It was short before, and somebody added something more with good intention to explain it further, so that it will not be misunderstood and so that it will be understood by the next generation when it is conveyed. So that means that when we're looking at two hadiths by comparison, one is the shorter version, the other one is the longer version, presumably, like prima facie you will say, on the first appearance, the shorter one should be preferred as the more authentic saying of the Prophet ﷺ. Because it is unlikely that one of the great scholars of the past, they heard the words of the Prophet ﷺ and they said, okay, these few words not important, omit those, just relate the rest. No, they would relate all of those. And then somebody else would add something to expand it further. That is referred to by the scholars as a mudraj, something that has been inserted into the hadith. And this is very common, it is well known. So what is to be observed here is that in the shorter version of Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, the words waqa'a fil haram is not mentioned. And this is significant. It means that somebody else later on added the words waqa'a fil haram to make the point that if you get into the shubuhat, into the doubtful matters, you have fallen into haram. And why do I think it is significant? Well, first of all, the hadith itself reads very nicely without it. You see, think about the ra. the one who is grazing his sheep. This is the announcement that I made after the khutbah. I want to remind you about. I said this was an addendum, but many of you had already left. Okay, the point is, this person is grazing his sheep, and he knows the border line. So he's in what you can say the halal area. He's allowed to graze his sheep there. He comes close to the border line, but he doesn't cross yet. So he has not fallen into the haram. He can actually stop himself at any time. He has not actually fallen into the haram. So to say, man waqa'a fi shubuhat, waqa'a fil haram, whoever falls into the shubuhat, falls into the haram, it's actually logically not sensible. Because you've fallen into the shubuhat, it means that you're in the shubuhat. It's like I have a dartboard, in the middle there is the 100-point, and around it there is the 50-point marker. So you throw your dart, either it's in the 100-point or it's in the 50-point. It's not in both places all at once. Okay? So the person is in the doubtful area. Yes, he's still in the doubtful area. But what has happened is that some people wanted to make some of that doubtful area to be haram as well. And that is not right. As it is, Al-Imam Bukhari rahimahullah in his hadith is showing that the one who falls into the shubuhat is like that person who is grazing. Maybe he will fall into the haram eventually. He's almost like on the verge of it. Yuqi'u an yuwaqi'u. He's yushiku an yuwaqi'u. He's on the verge there. But he can stop himself, and this is the point one has to be aware of. What we are looking at here is that the fact that there can be gray areas in our religion. There can be some gray areas. And some people did not like the gray areas. They wanted to make everything either halal or haram. So everything is clear. Al-halalu bayyin, wal-haramu bayyin, and everything is clear. So there's no gray area in between. But in fact, there can be a gray area in between, and there is a gray area in between. Now, between halal and haram, there are two categories that the scholars of fiqh have pointed out. And these are called the makruhat. Among the makruhat means the hated things or undesirable things. They're makruh. You cannot call them haram. But if among the makruh, now you have two categories. One is makruh tanzihi, which is the kind of hateful thing which one who wants to protect himself, and especially the Muslim scholars, they should avoid those things. But they do not prescribe this for others. That's a category of dislike because the evidence against their being so bad is not so very clear. But the scholars know about this evidence because they have done detailed studies. They see that this is something bad. They want to lead the community towards what is good, and so they avoid those things for themselves. That's makruh tanzih. Now, the other category is closer to the haram, makruh tahrimi. This is like when somebody sees something going wrong and they say there ought to be a law against this. Because they see the thing is so wrong and there's no law yet. So they call on their governments to make a law to ban a certain thing. So they see that the thing is so bad that they think that it should be haram, even according to their own legal system. In a similar way, Muslims will see certain things, and you have this sense, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us sama wa basara wal fu'ad. He's given us the hearing and the sight and the intelligence. So naturally we see certain things are very bad and we think that that thing should be haram. But now the point is that you cannot call it haram. So the scholars refer to it as makruh tahrimi. It is a makruh of the haram sort. But it is not, you cannot call it haram. Why can we not call it haram? Now, this was the whole reason for my being so agitated about this and emotional about it. Because as Muslim scholars or lay people, we have no authority to prescribe something to be halal or haram. That is only with Allah Azza wa Jal. In Surah Ash-Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemns those people who have taken others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will prescribe halal and haram. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala several times in the Quran condemns those people who are saying with their own inventions of their own mouths, this is halal and this is haram. So halal and haram are two categories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects for himself. He has the right to legislate that this is halal and this is haram. So some things are very clear in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is halal. And some things are very clear in the book of Allah that this is haram, by clear pronouncement. So nobody can change those pronouncements. And we cannot add to it, we cannot take away from it. Those are halal and haram. They're left with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, in Surah Al-An'am, وَقَدْ فَصَّلَ لَكُمْ مَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. So it says very plainly, He has made in plain for you. He has detailed for you what He has made haram for you. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah has made trading lawful, He has made trading halal, and He has made riba haram. So a very clear pronouncement. Allah has made this halal and He has made the other thing haram. So how do we deal with the gray areas in between? So some scholars say that the basic principle is that a thing is to be considered halal unless there is some clear evidence against it. So they will cite as a principle al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha. So the basic principle in a thing is that the thing is permissible. This is a good principle, but it's not universal. Because there could be some things which are not pronounced about, but you can see that something is wrong with this. And if your conscience shows, and the collective conscience of the Muslims show that something is really wrong with this, then you have to avoid it. Because it may be somewhere in that gray area, in that range. Some things are close to the haram, you have to avoid those. And some things are not close to the haram, the Muslim scholars at least should avoid those. And some things may actually be so very close to halal that it's indistinguishable from the halal. But you wouldn't give it that name, because to call something halal by your own words, without some definite proof from Allah and His Messenger, this itself is an imposition. This is why you will find that some of the good scholars of Islam, when they're asked a question, they wouldn't say this is halal or haram. They refuse to use those categories. They would say, La ba'sa bih. There is no harm in it. Or La ajidu fihi shay. I don't find anything wrong with it. So he's saying, this is from my perspective. He's not putting the words in the mouth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knows that that would be an imposition. He has no right. So we have to be very clear. And those people who try to make the items which are from the mutashabihat or mushtabihat or mushabbahat, the doubtful matters, the ambiguous matters, they try to make those haram, they are imposing something in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to refuse to go there. We can say that some of these things are bad, we avoid them, but we cannot call them haram. Now, there is a difference on perspective here from two aspects of the community. One is the aspect of the scholar. The scholar goes into the details about this. Here I'm thinking about the phrase in the hadith, لا يعلمها كثير من الناس. Many of the people don't know about how to deal with these doubtful matters. But the scholars will know how to deal with them. The scholars know the complexities of the issues. And why is the matter remaining doubtful? Sometimes it's because it's a new item. It was not pronounced on previously. It is so new that it requires a whole new fresh thinking about it. So the scholars know that we're dealing with something here that is so new that our past books did not refer to this item. They realize that whatever they say about it is based on their own modern ijtihad. So they cannot say that this is halal or haram. They have to say, like we said before, I don't find anything objectionable in this new item. Muslims can use this. Or I see other people using this and it is not harming their society, so there's no harm if Muslims use this as well, and so on. Now for the common people, this is the other aspect. From the point of view of the common people, we don't know which one is halal and which one is haram. We only know the few things that have been taught to us, maybe from childhood, or we heard about it in the khutbah. So we heard certain things being denounced in the khutbah: rape, adultery, slander, backbiting, stealing. We know these things to be haram. So okay, we avoid those things. We know that some things are halal. So we do those things. In between, there are all these gray areas that we don't know about. What do we do? Well, the average person doesn't know what to do about this. and has to take a hands-off approach and say, I'm going to do the halal because I know those. The rest of things I don't know, so I'm not going to mess with those things until I find out about it. So ask a scholar, because it may be that you're doing something which is actually sinful. Maybe it is close to haram, but you don't know about it. So you have to learn. It is important to learn. So what happens now is that if we think of the halal as being here on my right, and this is a square, that's halal, and here there is the haram, and between them you have the mushtabihat. So now, the average person looking at the mushtabihat, he has to treat them as though it's in the haram category because he doesn't know. Maybe if I do that, I'm getting close to the haram. So let me avoid those because I don't want to fall into sin. But if you learn more, and this is the point I want to make now, if you study this religion, brothers and sisters, you will see that much that is in that mushtabihat category is actually closer to halal. And we can do them. And there is no sin. But without the knowledge, you might feel that the religion is hard. It is by gaining more knowledge of Islam that you will see the ease, the simplicity, and the practicality of it all. This is where the Muslim groups around the world that are started up by young individuals, by the Shabab, they are in turmoil and in war with their societies. Because what they conceive of to be as Islam is like, it's all muharramat. Because they have included all the mushtabihat in the haram. Sometimes they include something which is clearly halal also in the haram. Like when they say our name is Boko Haram. Western education is haram. That's the meaning of their name. Well, where did they get this from? This is halal. But they have made that haram. What do you think now about the mushtabihat? They've made all of those haram as well. So because they have made so many things haram, they are at war with their societies. They cannot integrate with the local populations. They cannot live in a harmonious situation with peoples of other faiths. They have misunderstood the religion. What is the cure for that? The cure for that is to study Islam. You don't come from Uzbekistan, you go to driving a truck in Manhattan, you pick the day of Halloween because you know many people will be out on the streets that day, that you're going to mow them down with a truck. That is not Islam. That is a misunderstanding of what Islam is. It's because people have made the religion so complicated that in the end they feel that this religion, nobody's going to accept it like this. We have accepted it, well, alhamdulillah, Allah has guided us, but nobody else is going to accept it. So what do? Kill the others. This is wrong. You have to recognize that if you study Islam and you understand the simplicity and the ease and the tasamuh, the tolerance that Islam builds, then Islam is practical, it is easy, it is simple. In fact, you will find that the haram items are only few. When it comes to eating meats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says only these 4 things. إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And then the 4 things are mentioned. Only these 4 things. قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِي مَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيَّ مِنْ رَبِّي مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَاعِمِ يَطْعَمُهُ إِلَّا. And then the 4 things. Say, I do not find in that which has been revealed to me from my Lord anything haram for the person to eat except these 4 things. Al-Maita, the blood, the dead animal, Ad-Dam, the blood, مَا أُهِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, that which has been offered to idols, anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the swine, the meat of pig. Only the 4 things are said to be haram in the Quran. So you will find that the list of haram in the Quran is very short. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. We have not omitted anything from the kitab. The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so complete that Allah can call it tibyan لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ. It is an explanation, of a clarification of everything. So where do they get these long lists of haram from? I don't have time now to go through their long lists and to show the fallacy of their lists, but I wanted to say very quickly in closing that the last half of the hadith about the qalb is important and it ties in with the first one. If the qalb is salim, then the whole body will be salim, will be wholesome, because the hands will obey that heart which is calling towards Allah Azza wa Jal. The mind will obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The feet will walk towards that which is good and away from that which is bad. The whole body will be wholesome if one fixes the heart. And when one indulges in the mushtabihat too much, This is the connection between the two parts. Now, the heart becomes dull with faith. It cannot guide the person, and that person may actually fall into haram because he's done so much of the mushtabihat. He's actually close to the haram, close enough. He's accustomed to it. It looks like, yeah, the grass is greener on the other side. I can easily jump over there. Yushiko and yuwaqi'afi. He is almost like on the verge, and now he actually goes into there because he has become so accustomed to doing the mushtabihat. Stay away from the things which you do not know. Learn, ask the scholars. And when something is clearly haram, stay away from it. Avoid it at all costs. Something is clearly halal, do it without compunction. Something is in between, you do it according to what your scholars advise. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا ما يهده الله فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وصلى الله تعالى على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والملائكة المقربين والخلفاء الراشدين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين اللهم اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم ربنا لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقم الصلاة. Volunteers will come through the rows to collect your donations for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please donate generously as you can. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Brothers, now you see the security barrier is there in place. That is actually going to help us in one way, but if we don't do it right, it's going to increase the congestion there. So I'm going to ask the